in the Daf. I'm Yael Shimoni, bringing to you together with Hadran and Yeshivat Drisha, learning a little bit more Iyun in your learning of the Cute. And we're finishing the Dapim of Aggadot Churban in Gittin. And this is a very special situation that happens every once in a while, that Daf Yomi meets our everyday lives. And since now we're in the 3 weeks approaching Tisha B'Av, learning Aggadot Churban, learning these tales of the destruction of the temple, is exactly a good time for us to learn this material. So we're very lucky that we can be getting ready for these days through the learning of Daf Yomi. And what Rabbanit Yael decided to do in her shiur, and I'll translate it for you today, is not learning Rashi and Tosfot, but to see Yerushalmi and Echarama, and look at differences between how the Bavli brings the aggadot and how in other places we see the aggadot, and to try maybe to understand more things regarding these tales of destruction. So we're looking at from Nunbun till Nupeh, and we're going to start with the question. The basic question is, what are these tales of destruction doing here in the Masechta of Gittin? And if we look at the connection, how they connect, you see that the Mishnah talks about sikrikon. What's sikrikon? So I'm reading the Mishnah quickly. לא היה sikrikon ביהודה ובהרוגי מלחמה, מהרוגי מלחמה ואילך יש בסיקריקון. כיצד סיקריקון וחזר ולקח מבעל הבית לקרוא בתים. מבעל הבית לקרוא חיים. מן האיש וחזר ולקח מן האישה לקרוא בתים. מן האישה וחזר ולקח מן האיש לקרוא חיים. זוהי משנה ראשון. And we have a difference in Mishnah Achona. So we're not learning the Mishnah, but we're only seeing the Mishnah to see what's the context. Where do these aggadot come connected to what Mishnah? Which Mishnah are we sitting on? And as we see, this is the connection of the way that the Gemara decided to put these aggadot here, because these aggadot basically are not naturally written in Gittin. They're not here in the Mishnahs. And on the other hand, we found them in Eitarama. These are very old tales. They're not on themselves, you might say, but Rebbe did not include them in the Mishnah. And the Gemara decides to connect them here on the Mishnah of Sikrikon. The Sikrikon is a situation that somebody takes powerfully land from another person, and the question is, what does this have to do with Mekachaminta? What exactly is the situation, if you look at it in halachic eyes? And the situation that somebody takes forcefully your ground, of course, is connected to the Korban, to the destruction of the temple, because then lands were taken by force. And it looks as if this is the connection. Why did we choose to bring the tales of destruction here? Because the situation of Sikrikon is when we had the destruction of the temple. So it's one explanation of what the aggadot do here. But if we look at other places, we'll see that there are other answers for the question, why do the tales of destruction sit here in the heart of Masechta Gittin? And we want to look at the Torah of Reb Tzadok, a Kohen Milublin. He's a Lamdan and a Chassid and an Achron, and he has a different explanation of what do these aggadot do here at the heart of Gittin. And says Reb Tzadok the following, מוכן, כל עניין האגדות שנזכרו בגמרא, כל אחד יש לו שייכות לאותו עניין, כמו מתן תורה במסכת שבת, בפרק רבי עקיבא, כי לדברי הכל בשבת ניתנה תורה, בפרק רבי עקיבא ירמוז על התורה שבעל פה, כי רבי עקיבא היה השורש של בחינת תורה שבעל פה, כי כולו סתימת האליבא דרבי עקיבא, וכנ"ל בשם האריזל. So first explains Reb Tzadok, whenever you see an aggadot in the Talmud, you have to ask yourself, what's the connection to the Masechta? And if you ask yourself, why are there stories of Matan Torah, the aggadot of Matan Torah inside Masechet Shabbos? It's because Masechet Shabbos talks about Shabbat, and on Shabbos the Torah was given, and it's dafka in the perek of Rabbi Akiva, because Rabbi Akiva is the beginning of the Torah Shabbat. So here, Reb Tzadok thinks that he can explain the connection to the whole Masechta and to the whole perek. So what will Reb Tzadok say about our Masechta Gittin and this specific Penizat? Let's see how he explains it. וגם אגדות החורבן נזכר במסכת גיטין בפרק הנזקין, כי עניין החורבן הוא כמו גירושין למראה עין. בפרק הנזקין יורה על דרש כי תצא אש וגומר שלם משלם המבעיר את הבעירה, שהקדוש ברוך הוא כביכול הצית אש בציון, והוא בכבודו ישלם הנזק, כמו שנאמר, ואני אהיה לה חומת אש סביב. So Tzadok takes this idea and gives us a reasoning for why are the tales of destruction here in Gittin and why does Hanizakim? So why are they in Gittin? So the Tzadok, because the destruction of the temple seems to be like a gerushi, a get that God gave Am Yisrael. As we know, the Navi discussed it, where is the get that you were given? And as Reb Tzadok says, it is not really a get. These are not really gerushin. It's lemarit ayin. It looks as if God has divorced Am Yisrael. So because we're talking about divorce, we're saying that the destruction of the temple is the idea of divorce in Am Yisrael. So that's why it's here in Masechet Gittin. Why is it in Perek HaNizakin? Here, Reb Tzadok is quoting a Gemara in Baba Kama. In Baba Kama, when you learn about the Nizkim of Esh, at the end of these Esh, there's a very interesting Agada. Also, Levinas wrote a commentary on that Agada. The end of that Agada says that God himself destroyed the temple. Why? Because Isho Mishum Chitzav. If somebody lights a fire, it's as if he did it himself. And even God was far away, the fire is his fire. And that is why he himself is responsible to repair the damage. And that's why the Kadosh Baruch Hu himself will rebuild the temple in fire. So says Reb Tzadok, in Perek HaNizakin, we learn that the destruction of the temple is connected to God because he did the nezek. So that's why here, the name of the Perek is Perek HaNizakin, and that's why we choose to put aggadot Churban here in Nizakin, because of that aggadah that God is Baal HaNezek. God is the one who has to repair the damage that has been done. So here we have two different explanations to what are these prakim doing here. One explanation is the explanation that we are connected to the Mishnah of Sikrikon. And this is because where would be the natural place to put these aggadot? We'll look for halacha that has to do with the destruction of the temple. That's where we'll put these halachot. A different explanation is Reb Tzadok's explanation that this is like Gerushin, and it's because God has to repair the damage, so that's why it's very kanizak. What we'll try to do together now is to try to offer a different explanation, an explanation that arises from the differences between Eicha Rabbah and the Babli in creating these aggadot, the nuances and the slight differences between how these aggadot are told here and there. So let's begin in reading the Aggadah that we know, the famous Aggadah here in Masechta Gittin. So we know that what happened, how was the temple destroyed? Because there was a korban, Kamsa Bar Kamsa sent korban that was slightly destroyed. He had a mum in the dokin of the ayin, and then there was a big machloket in Chachamim. Can we actually bring this korban because it's pasul mizbeach, but the Romans don't know that. They can't see that in their eyes because it's not an obvious problem in the korban. So they're in a dilemma. If they won't be makriv this korban, it will look as if they're going against Rome, and then they'll be destroyed. And if they will put the korban, so that's going against the laws of halacha. What should we do? So here we see that there was a machloket between Rabbanan and Rabbi Yitzchak ben Avkulas. סבור רבנן לעקוב משום שום לא מלכות. חכמים said, in such a situation, עת לעשות להשם הפרו תורתך, the whole people will be destroyed, we will sacrifice this korban. For Rabbi Yitzchak ben Avikulas, we can't do that. People will say, בעלי מומים can go on the mizbeach, and that will be something that will destroy halal. So Rabbanan said, okay, we can't actually bring this korban, so we should kill the person who brought the korban. So it's killing a person in order to save the situation. Will kill the person who brought the korban, so then he won't go back to the king of to Rome and say that Jews were going against the Roman Empire. If you'll kill this, the Jews will say, "What? You kill people who destroy korbanot? That's also a problem against halach. אמר רבי יוחנן, ענוותנותו של רבי יצחק בן אביקולס החריבה את ביתנו ושרפה את היכלנו וגלתנו מארצנו. So Rabbi Yochanan has a very famous mimar, which is very strange. Rabbi Yochanan says, because Rabbi Yitzchak ben Avikulas was Anav, to Anav, it destroyed the temple. And this is because Anava is usually something that we see as something positive, and here it's depicted as negative. And if you look in Masechet Shabbos, we see that there's another place that Anvetanuto shel Rabbi Yitzchak ben Avikulas is described in order to understand what exactly was this Anava. So here we are in Masechet Shabbos, and פרק ט"ז הלכה ז', בית הלל אומרים, in the תוספתא, excuse me, מסכת השבס, פרק ט"ז הלכה ז'. We're here in הלכות מוקצה. בית הלל אומרים, מטביעין מעל השולחן עצמות וקליפין. בית שמאי אומרים, מסלק את הטבלה כולם מנערה. What's this מחלוקת בית הלל ובית שמאי? We have a problem in הלכות Shabbos. The problem is muktzeh. If I am eating chicken or if I'm eating nuts, so the food I can eat and I can move it around. But once it became something which is solet, I'm only left with bones. I'm only left with the shells of the nuts. It's a problem. It's muktzeh. I can't move it around. What can I do? So Bet Hillel says, no, we can actually take these nuts and take these bones and clear the table. Why? Because we're cleaning the table. So that's why we can do it. Bet Shammai says, no, you can't actually take them. You have to take the whole table and shake it off. It's Machloket Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai. Each one of them is giving us a solution to Salah. And here we see Zcharia ben Avikulas, and what does he do? Zcharia ben Avikulas, לא כדברי בית שמאי, לא כדברי בית הלל, אלא משליך לאחר המיטה. We see that Zcharia ben Avikulas, because he's very, very adamant on keeping halacha, he is also unwilling to find practical solutions. And he's willing to do something unpractical, to leave on Shabbos a whole amount of dirt behind. You're eating something, you throw it behind your back. That's what you do. According to Zcharia ben Avikulas, that's keeping halacha, but not giving any problem to fit it with life, to fit it with other ideas of Shabbos, to have a clean house. So now Zcharia ben Avikulas, he eats and throws it away. Amar Rabbi Yossi, ענוותנותו של רבי יצחק בן אביקולס, היא שרפה את ההיכל. So here we have an explanation of what's this ענוותנותו. ענוותנותו של רבי יצחק בן אביקולס means that he feels that he's too small to solve a problem. And he's unwilling even to take a stand in solving a problem. He's not willing to pay a price. And because he wants to keep halacha as it is. And that is something that is problematic. That's what destroyed the temple. So this is what we see here in the Bavli, that we're actually saying that the fault of destruction of the temple is what Zcharia ben Avikulas did or not did. This idea that Zcharia ben Avikulas was the person who created all these problems is here in Gittin. But if we'll check what it looks like in other places, we'll see that we don't have the mentioning of Zcharia ben Avikulas as something so problematic. Let's look at a Haraba and see what's written there. If we look at a Haraba, we will see that Zcharia ben Avikulas is not mentioned at the central theme of the destruction of the temple. No, the whole story there does not exist. It's only at the end, and the rest of the Aggadah is written in Aramaic. So we see that the Bavli here decided to take this figure of Zcharia ben Avikulas and to put it in the middle of the Aggadah, even though the earlier Aggadah, the one that we see in Haraba, did not put Zcharia ben Avikulas in the central problem of destruction of the temple. So this is a chidush of the Bavli in writing this Aggadah. Another chidush that the Bavli has, if we look at a Haraba, is what was the role of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. So let's look at this famous Aggadah that we all know in the Bavli and see what it's like in a Haraba and see the difference. So in the Bavli we know that there were three great rich men who had enough food, enough wood to keep Am Yisrael in Jerusalem for 22 years. excuse me, 21 years. So we could have stayed and resisted as far as food went for 21 years. What happened? There were those who were radical and strong. בריונים. אמרו להוא רבנן, איפוק ונעביד שלמה בעדיו, לא שבקיעו. אמרו לי, איפוק ונעביד קרקע בעדיו. אמרו לי, רבנן לא מסתייע מילתא. קלניהו להניו אמבר דחיתי ושרת, והווי קישו. Says the Aggadic, what happened? There was a whole discussion between Chachamim and the Brionim. Chachamim said, let's do peace. And the Brionim didn't want us to do peace. Brionim said, let's do, and Chachamim said, no, we're going to do a fight, it won't work. So then the Brionim came and they burnt all the food, and that's how the hunger started in the city. This is how it's written in the Bible. If you look at this Rabbi, we'll see a slight difference that makes a big difference. והיה שם בן בטיח, בן אחותו של רבן יוחנן בן זכאי, שהיה ממונה על האוצרות, ובחוקית כל אוצר. שאמר רבן יוחנן בן זכאי, אמר וי, אז הנה אמרינן לבן בטיח, אמר חביבך וי, שלח ואתה, למה אמרת וי? אמר לו, לא אמרתי וי אלא וי, ולמה אמרת וי? אמר לי, והוקית את כל אוצרי, ואמרתי גדול זמן דאוצר הקיימים, לא עבד גשמיענו למעבד קרוב. So here, there is a difference. We have Ben Batich, which is a relative. He is the nephew of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, and he's part of the Biryonim. And Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, of course, is part of the Chachamim. And here, Ben Batich first destroys the food. And then Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai tells him that he was wrong. So instead of having the whole fight between Chachamim and the Biryonim that caused the burning of the food, here, the burning of the food occurred with no fight with the Chachamim. Chachamim here just stand and say what you did was wrong. So we see that the Chachamim are not in the middle, and they're not part of fighting, and they're not those who were responsible for the burning. They're just looking at what happened and saying that it was wrong. So Chachamim don't have such a strong place in the Aggadah and Eichad Rabbah, as opposed to Chachamim in the Aggadah and the Bafli. Let's see another difference. At the end of the aggadot, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai speaks out and says, give me Avne v'chachamea. And here, we have a very interesting discussion. ותקי אמרת, אם אל תענה, אם אל תעתית לגבי הדאינה, בריון הדאית בן לא שפקים. And they're very good question. Why didn't you come up till now if I'm the king? I was not allowed. And then he's asked the following question. אמר לי, אילו חבית של דבש ודרקון כרוך עליה, לא היו שוברים את החבית בשביל דרקון? אישתי. Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai is asked, if we have a chavit, which is a casket holding something which is very, very sweet, very good, honey. Well, what can we do? We have a dracon, we have a snake sitting on top of it. What can we do? This is, of course, a description of Jerusalem. Jerusalem is full of honey. It's holding, it's this chavit, holding honey, holding the good Jews, okay, those who want to have peace with Rome. So Rome is interested in us. However, there are the biryonim, which are the snake, sitting on top of it. So, says, where Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai is asked, I understand that you want peace with us, but your honey, which is held by a snake, I have to kill the snake. What can I do? I'll kill the snake and I'll also ruin you. And Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai here, ishtik. קרא עלי רב יוסף ואיתמר בעקיבא משיב חכמים אחור ודעתם מסכל לי בא אלי למימר לי שקלינן צוותא ושקלינן לי לדרקון וקטלינן לי וחביתא שבקינן. So here we have strong saying of Rabbi Akiva, no, could you do this? You should have had a different answer. The different answer was, take tzvat, something that can hold only the snake, take the snake out and keep the honey. You should have asked to have Jerusalem saved. Why didn't you ask Jerusalem to be saved? This is here in the Bible. Pesata de Rabban Gamliel, Vasuda de Masele le Rabbi Tzadok. So here we know that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai did not ask to stay in Jerusalem, but asked for other things. And again, we have another statement by Rabbi Yosef from Rabbi Akiva, Mashiv Chachamim Achor v'datam Ezekel Ba'el Ememale L'Shafkinan Hana Zimna. You should have said, just let Jerusalem go. So in the Bavli, we see that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is somebody who did not do his job well. He should have asked to save Jerusalem, and he didn't even try. Let's look at Eicha Rabbah. Here, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai acts differently. יד אספסיאנוס מחבש מדינתא, אמר לי לרבן יוחנן בן זכאי, ואנא אבידת. אמר לי, תבע אנך מנינך תרפא מדינתא ותזי לך. אמר לי, כל עצמנו מליכון עם נרומי, אלא על עסק המדינה, ואת אמרתי תרפא מדינה ונזי לי? The difference. Your Aspasianus asks Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, ask something and I'll give you anything you want. And what does Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai say? Give me, not Yavne, give me Jerusalem. Tirpa medinata v'tezilach. Give me Jerusalem and go away. Here, in Eicha Rabbah, the first thing that Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai said was exactly what Rabbi Akiva said. Why didn't you say that? Here we see that he actually did say it. And why didn't Aspasianus listen to him? Because Aspasianus says, listen, I can't give you Jerusalem because I was made king in order to destroy Jerusalem. So that's one thing I cannot give you. So ask for something else. אמר לי, ואם כדין הוא, אנא תוואי מנך, תרפא פילי מערב, תיתא נפיק ללוד, תוכתה עד תלת שעים, כל מה להביר בליבך, נפיק. So only after Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai asked to have Jerusalem and was returned with a no, then he asked, give us 3 hours to escape, open the gates so anyone who wants to escape will escape, and that's how those will survive. So here we have a different story, not give me Yavne v'chachamea, give me Jerusalem. Oh, if you can't give me Jerusalem, give me a chance to escape. So here, instead of showing Chachamim fighting amongst themselves, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai is doing what Rabbi Akiva wants him to do. So let's look at all these differences. We saw 3 differences between Eicha Rabbah and the Talmud Bavli. In the story of Kamsa Bar Kamsa and the Bavli, Rabbi Yitzchak ben Avikulas doesn't know what to decide. He's a Chacham who's unsure. He can't make a decision, and that's why they destroyed the temple. And Eicha Rabbah, you don't have all that. It's not there. Yitzchak ben Avikulas is something that is really mentioned much later, and you see that's written there in Aramaic and not in Hebrew, and it looks like a late addition. If you look at the story of the burning of food, so in the Bavli, Chachamim and the Bilyonim fight between themselves, and they have a problem of making a decision, and that's what causes the burning of food. But in Eicha Rabbah, Chachamim have nothing to do with the burning of the food. Ben Batik burnt it, and Chachamim say that was very bad. So they weren't a cause in the story at all. And in the Bavli, we see that Rabbi Akiva and Ribaz are fighting. What should Ribaz say? Ribaz decided not to ask for Jerusalem. Rabbi Akiva thought that he should have asked for Jerusalem. So it's a fight between Chachamim. In Eicha Rabbah, there's no fight. Ribaz asked to save Jerusalem. So if we look at the differences, we see that in the Bavli, Chachamim are much central to the story, and the Machlokot of Chachamim are much more central to the story. And in Eicha Rabbah, the Machlokot of Chachamim are not the main motive at all. So what is the meaning of this? Let's look at what we saw up till now. We asked the basic question, why are the aggadot of the Churban here in the middle of Masechet Gittin? The answer was because it's connected to the din of Sifrikot. The second answer from Rabbi Tzadok was it's because it's like a get that God gave to Am Yisrael, and it's because Anisakin, God was the destructor, and God will have to fix. But maybe from the differences between Eicha Rabbah and the Bavli, we can offer a third explanation. The Prakim 4 and 5 are not only Prakei Nizikin, they're part of a bigger part of talking about Tikkun Ha'olam. Remember we said when we started Perek Revi that this is called Perek Tikkun Ha'olam, and we'll see that this is a repairing of the world not only in Gittin but also in other areas. We saw Kruzbo, and there are many other halachot that are connected to Tikkun Ha'olam. And here, part of the bigger story of Tikkun Olam, the spirit, Prakim of Tikkun Olam, 2 Prakim of Tikkun Olam, we see that the aggadot of the Churban settle in. So how are the stories of the destruction of the temple connected to Tikkun Olam. So when you see the connection between halacha and agada, many times there is something between them. Here we see the halacha, chachamim, throughout the parak, use their paras chachamim to repair the world, even if they pay prices in halacha. So they don't do it easily. It calls for a lot of strength of chachamim, for a gdula of chachamim, but that is also part of the tafkid, part of the role of chachamim, letaken olam. And if we look at the aggadot of the Churban, we see that chachamim did not take that role upon themselves. What the story of the Bavli says is that chachamim were expected to repair the world. They were expected to go according to halacha throughout Perek Revi'i and Perek Chamishi, because chachamim have the power to repair the world, to make compromises, to find solutions, to find a way to keep halacha and still to keep the world intact. And if there's a problem, to repair the world. And chachamim here, again and again and again, do not take the role of tikkun olam upon themselves. And that is a musar the chachamim are giving themselves, that they did not do enough to repair the world, and that was part of what caused the churban. So that's just an offer, going with the same idea of Reb Tzadok, of asking ourselves, why is this in Gittin, but why dafka in these prakim? Instead of talking about Perek Nizakin, we're speaking about the prakim of tikkun olam and trying to understand that we should have done tikkun olam, but we did not take, chachamim did not take the role that was expected from them to take. So these are thoughts that we're taking into the 9 days that are starting next week. And I also want to add another thought. I think this time of the 3 weeks and the 9 days, it's not enough to look back on what happened. We have to think, what can we do to repair, to do tshuva now? This is a time of tshuva. And I think what we see here in the Bavli, that if you look at the story, the historical story, maybe Chachamim's role was not so central. But when Chachamim read about the Churban, they try to take Musar for themselves. Even they might not have been the main reason for the Churban Abayit. What they think they should do, thinking about the Churban, is what they could have done differently. And what is their role now, today? So there's a big idea on Tammuz and Av that this is a time of tshuva. And the Rambam says that we keep these tumot because we do tshuva now. This is hard tshuva mir'ah, to see what went wrong, to see how we should have fixed things and acted differently. So I hope the learning of Masechta Gittin and these days will have all of us do cheshbon nefesh. We will learn from Chachamim. We did this cheshbon nefesh. And Yisrael Hashem, we will begin a new path soon and get together to Elul and Tishrei in Tshuva Shlema. Be'ezrat Hashem. Take care. We'll meet again next week.